future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Haha, there we go. I'm here. Are you here? Greetings and
here.
salutations, everyone. You have tuned into Dr. Judy, WTF. And this, of course, stands for today, What the Freud?
I can hear that our audience is just growing.
Yeah, yep.
It's massive out there.
And someone's been messing with my board. And thanks for tuning in, folks. You have tuned into one of the number one shows here at UBN, Universal Broadcasting Network. You can also find our shows on Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and you can watch us on, we have all the shows, and we're going to be adding a few more that we were missing, on YouTube. And while you're watching on YouTube, you can just kind of saunter over to Facebook and like us. We'd really appreciate it. And you can send us a message there. We're on Dr. Judy WTF on Facebook and Twitter as well. And, of course, it's sponsored, as always, by the Psychological Healing Center with offices all over the world, but specifically in Sherman Oaks and Beverly Hills. And, of course, Dr. Judy and her team can do Skype and telephone sessions as well.
And I just wanted to say I have a new website
Yes.
up now. I think it looks beautiful. There are a number of interns, psychological assistants that you can look up and research and read about. And as some of you know, we have teletherapy, phone therapy, sliding scale therapy. We try not to turn anybody down, so that
really don't.
If you feel that you have a hole in the soul wound, which I think we all do, it just depends on the size. Some of us have small, so others medium, and some large, and then
Small,
I see
medium, and
extra large.
God!
Yeah, so I think that we can all benefit by learning how to think like a shrink, which is what I teach people to do.
Yes, you do.
And to really take them from the wounds of childhood through decoding them and recoding them into health. So this is a encode, decode, and recode system from through to. And we keep it at a 10-session mind map journey so that people can get psychoeducated into how to heal human disconnect and how to heal the wounds.
And very effectively.
Yes.
But if you really don't want to show up, then what you need to do is get on the couch with Dr. Judy today. And you need to call, because this is a call-in show. Mm-hmm. And the number is area code 323-843-2826. And later on, we will be shrinking that tune that we normally do. But our topic today is one that we probably is very long overdue in doing. Last week, we did it on anorexic and bulimia. And the one before that was for teen plastic surgery. We're doing alcoholism. So if you know someone who you think kind of sort of maybe might be an alcoholic or is a functioning alcoholic, or, you know, you just can't get through that day without some alcohol, you know what? Call in, because we can help.
And my book is really, really close to being ready.
Yes,
I've been only
it is.
saying that for a year now. I want to read you a little bit from the book so that you can know that it's not a figment of my imagination, Walt's imagination. So alcoholism is a defense mechanism. And alcohol is a great way for people to fill the hole in the soul that mother-infant disconnect leaves us with. So just to give you a little bit of a background on what it takes to form a healthy human psyche, I want to refer to attachment theory, John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth's work with infants. And what they found is that infants who develop a secure attachment have many ingredients that make up for their mental health, like eye contact, skin contact, attunement from the mother or primary caregiver. They have a an environment of safety. Father is nurturing the mother so that she feels supported, so that she can concentrate on nurturing the baby. And everything is in balance and attuned and child or infant centered. So that's ideal. And how many of us get those elements? I don't know that many people who
Well,
have
it's very
that.
few and far between. You know what?
Right.
You know what some people do to fill in that hole in the cell? Scotch, bourbon, rum, gin, whiskey, tequila, vodka, beer, wine, and maybe some sake. Question is, are you man or a real woman enough to hold your liquor?
And the thing is there's a big debate, or rather controversy, about whether alcoholism is genetic or environmental. And I like the quote. I think it's from Dr. Oz that the genes load the gun and the environment pulls the trigger.
Oh my goodness, that's perfect.
Isn't that perfect?
Say that again. Say that again.
I'm trying to find the
The
quote.
genes
I know.
load the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. While you're looking for your article, I have one. There's a little article that was I found regarding genetics. I had a friend of mine who really felt it was a big issue. And basically what the consensus is, at least this particular article, is that genetics explains about 60% of the risk of alcoholism, and environmentalism accounts for the rest.
Wait, genes?
60%.
Environmental?
No, 60% is genetic.
Genetic,
And
okay.
40% is environmental.
Okay.
And the genetic that they really talk about is the low sensitivity to alcohol, meaning it takes a good deal less. If you're less sensitive to alcohol, that means it takes more alcohol for you to get the same buzz.
Right, so that's what they call alcohol tolerance.
Yes,
High tolerance
higher
for alcohol.
tolerance. Yes.
So I just want to talk generally about defense mechanisms, and if you would be so kind as to put the mind map up.
And those of you that are listening to this, you can go to drjudywtf.com. And it's actually the new website for the Psychological Healing Center, and there's a mind map there.
And I'm still uploading information, so
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
get thicker and thicker in terms of content.
We're going to load all the shows,
Yeah.
all the radio shows, all our YouTube shows.
Yeah,
so
and
stay tuned.
alphabetize them. That's my goal.
Yeah, stay
So
tuned.
famous words here. Okay, so if you look at the mind map, you have it up there?
I do.
Okay, so here's how it goes. The top part of the mind map represents the past and the encoding of the past. The middle represents how our present is experienced, the chaos, the defenses, and the breakdowns. And then the bottom part of the mind map represents what therapy does, which is shift us out of the bad encoding, decode the pathology, and then recode us into health.
There's that paradigm shift.
There's the paradigm shift.
Yes.
So right in the middle of the mind map, you will see defenses, which I call defense mechanisms because they're an ism. And isms are very varied. We're interesting as a human race because we use many forms of isms to protect ourselves, like alcoholism, or gambleaholicism, or shopaholism, or all kinds of isms that really function to defend the wounds of childhood and then develop into some kind of a protective mechanism to shield us. And some of these isms are healthy, some of them are not so healthy. So here's a little bit from my panel 5 on decoding defense mechanisms. Symptoms don't lie. They point to the cause of your psychopathology. They are the hieroglyphics or clues that help you identify and guide you to the root cause of psychopathology, human disconnect. Remember, wherever we're disconnected from, we're going to hurt. The anxiety and depression of being disconnected from naturally causes us or you to build adaptive defense mechanisms designed to shield you from these painful emotions. Although your defense mechanisms start off as adaptive solutions to your problem, they eventually become the problem when you continue to defend after the threat of disconnection is gone. Your defense mechanisms, when no longer functional, then become your symptoms.
Well, here's a quote I found.
Okay.
My addiction built steadily, and before I realized it, I had become a morning as well as an afternoon drinker. I decided to stop drinking. I lay awake most that night, and by noon the next day, every bone in my body ached. In a blind panic, I nervously pulled a full glass of gin, my hands shaking so violently that I spilled half the bottle. As I gulped it down, I could feel the agony gradually lessening. Then I finally knew the terrible truth. I was hooked, and I could not quit.
Now, I want you who are listening and have this particular issue, or you know of a loved one who's suffering from alcoholism, and I think we all know somebody who has this issue. It's so prevalent that alcoholism is not our fault. Okay, it's not like we wake up in the morning and decide that we're going to
maybe I want to be an alcoholic today.
And so what happens is it starts out really innocently, and then it becomes a big animal, and it becomes this huge, unmanageable thing in your life that requires more than therapy. So I want to be upfront with everyone and say that those are the people who are in my practice who have an ism, alcoholism, heroinism, cocaine addiction-ism, whatever the ism is.
Right.
They know that they need to be in a 12-step program, because once a week or twice a week or even 3 times a week's worth of therapy is not enough. Because this is a huge animal, and it's bigger than everybody in that room.
Well,
so,
and then what else is, let me interrupt you. I had a friend of mine who when I started my first job when I was 17 years old, he had tried every single drug possible, from LSD to acid to all the 9 yards. And he said to me that he says there's one drug that is more prevalent and more addictive than all of them. Mm-hmm. It's alcohol. He says, look, you can go to the grocery store. You can buy alcohol. Right. You go down to a liquor store. Of course, you can buy alcohol. You go down to a local bar. What do they got? Alcohol.
And you open your refrigerator, and what's in there? Alcohol.
And
right?
it's legal.
Right.
Yeah.
So unlike other drugs, which are more taboo, which are more labeled as bad drugs, if you're using heroin, that's a bad drug. Everybody knows that's not okay. Or if you're using cocaine, there's another one. Or if you're using crystal meth, there's another one. But alcohol just sounds like a socially accepted way to go about life. And so for some, it's very socially acceptable.
Correct.
I love a glass of wine, or I love my sake with my sushi. However, where does that cross lines for people? So some people can do that on an occasional basis and be okay.
We're going to talk about that pretty quickly here.
Right.
But it's very, very prevalent. I've got some statistics if you want a few facts. Every year in the United States, roughly 5,000 people under the age of 21 die from alcohol-related incidents, whether it's be a car crash, homicide, suicide, alcohol poisoning, or others. Mm-hmm. Men are consistently more likely than women to drink in excess of 2 times, and twice as likely as to be involved in a fatal alcohol car accident. 18 to 34-year-olds binge drink the most. 18 to 34-year-olds binge drink the most. 17% of men and 8% of women will be dependent upon alcohol sometime in their life.
Did you say 70?
17.
17. Thank you.
Yeah, 17%
of
and
men.
8% of women, almost half as many women.
Yeah.
There are roughly 80,000 deaths that are related to alcohol abuse every single year. Mm-hmm. It is the 3rd highest cause of death in the United States. And lastly, the long-term issues dealt with alcoholism are vast. Cardiovascular disease, cancer of the throat, liver or mouth challenges, anxiety, depression, dementia, liver disease, and of course much more.
And something that I want to mention also, having worked with smokers for so many years.
Yep, you've got a Habit Maker book that's available out on Amazon.
Yes, I have the Dr. Judy's Habit Breaker Stop Smoking book. It's available. You can look at it on the website. But my point is that cigarettes and alcohol go together.
Yes, they do.
And so the cigarettes are a stimulant drug and the alcohol is a depressant, and they play off of each other. And they switch roles too, because sometimes alcohol is stimulating at the beginning, but then it lets you down because it shoots the bloodstream up and then drops you down, so that at first you feel energized by it, but then later on it knocks you out and takes energy from you. So speaking of vampiring, drugs can leave you with less than. You go in with the idea that you're going to be more than, but after a short while you feel that you come out with less than because you're tired.
You need it again.
And you need it again.
You need more.
Right.
Yeah.
For people who are addicted, they need more. I want to mention how addictions interfere with survival mechanism. When they do research with rats, they show that rats will actually gravitate toward the drug over food.
Yep.
So they will choose food. They will choose the drug over food.
Yep.
And so what we're saying is that the addiction is so powerful that people will actually vote for that substance over their job or their wife or their relationships or their children or anything. And it's really, really powerful.
And lie and deny about it all the way along.
Those are the systems that keep them alive.
And some people go, I just drink beer. And, it's not really a problem. I had a roommate who was an alcoholic, and I remember I could hear him opening a can of beer at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then soon thereafter he'd open another one, and his name was Bob, and I said, Bob, really, do you drink that much beer? He goes, oh, it relaxes me.
Sure.
I said, you know what then? You are the most relaxed person I know.
Yeah,
and people,
because he does it that often.
Oh, man.
It's very relaxed.
It's insane. People go, well, what's a drink? So I thought we would define what that is. A 12-ounce beer is a drink. In terms of the amount of alcohol is the same in all of these different drinks. An 8-ounce malt liquor, or 5 ounces of wine, 1.5 ounces of 80 proof alcohol. All of those have the same impact on your body in terms of the alcohol. So
it's a mistake to think that
yes.
just because you're drinking beer and a lot of it, that you're definitely not an alcoholic.
Correct.
An alcoholic, because it's just beer or it's just wine. Doesn't work that way.
No, it still
alcohol is alcohol. And if the content is low, people will just drink more of it to get the buzz.
To make up the difference.
Exactly.
And you want to know, I didn't. This was quite shocking to me. There's a disorder it's called AUD, alcohol use disorder, and this is statistics from 2013 is the most recent I could find. But people 18, and again, this is 18 and above, 16.6 million adults 18 or over have alcohol use disorders annually.
And then it crosses that
and then
line
12 to 17 is about 700,000. So you're talking about from age 12 on up over 17 million people, close to 18 million people in the country have issues with alcohol. That's huge.
Profound.
It's huge.
That's almost half the population of Canada. Do you realize that?
No, I don't know what the population of Canada is.
I think it's somewhere around 34 million, or
34 million?
maybe more
Okay.
by now, maybe up to 50
there's
by now.
330 million or plus or minus, who, depending on the count, people that aren't supposed to be here in the United States. So, there's a difference between alcoholism, alcohol abuse, and of course, then there's the old functioning alcoholic.
Right, and Walt, in some cultures, I remember when I was growing up, my family's Hungarian, and so alcohol flowed freely at the dinner table, and it didn't matter that I was only 7 years old. I had a little wine spritzer. It didn't matter that I was 5 years old. Taste a little bit of that pear liquor. And I'm very fortunate that I didn't develop alcoholism. But I'm wondering if you have any statistics regarding people from different cultures.
I have one article. It's interesting. It's from Australia. I'm just going to talk about in a minute. But my father drank a lot of wine. He converted our basement into a wine cellar. all he did was put a case in it. But, I tasted a lot of wine and other things. And for me, the mystery wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
You tasted it, it's fine. And I did the same thing with my kids. And it's like, oh, they don't like that. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
I think some respects, there's two schools of thought. But for me, in my personal experience as a parent as well as a child, when there was less mystery, then, once the time came, it's like, it's not that big a deal. Been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for you,
right. It's
the
an
mystery wasn't
interesting-
there. It's like you had a little taste of it. It tastes good or whatever. I can live with it, take it, leave it, and away you go.
I wasn't waiting till legal age to have my drink. I wasn't excited about going to the bar because the bar was right there at home. And if
Exactly.
I wanted it.
It was there.
Yeah. Although it was really interesting. I remember a time in my life where I had just moved to the Los Angeles area, and I was really, really lonely because I didn't have any friends, and I kept looking at the liquor cabinet knowing that it could take the edge off.
Yes.
And I just want to share this because it was such a profound moment in my life where there's something in my brain that knew that if I went over there and I did that on a regular basis, that would be not good. So what I chose to do about it, which was really interesting, is I started praying. And I actually used the song by the Beatles, Don't Let Me Down.
Don't Let Me Down.
That song became my mantra and my prayer. And so as I became educated in the field of psychology, I can really understand the AA philosophy of allowing spirit, the spirit of a higher power, not the spirit of alcohol, into your life so that hole in the soul, that connection could be made to a light source as opposed to connecting with the darkness. Right.
And if you really do have issues or challenges with alcohol, we're going to go through some of them now, or somebody who does, feel free to call us. We're here for you. And, of course, we're only here for an hour a week at 8 to 9 Pacific. But our number is area code 323-843-2826. Or, of course, you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com as well. And we answer and respond to all that comes in. So.
And I just wanted to make a comment. You know how we talk about imploding and exploding and unloading? One of the ways that we implode is through drinking alcohol. It's an implosion because it's a denial system. So that when in therapy we go back to the cause, which is always the blueprint, what we're really looking at in this model is what is it that we need to suppress in order to exist in a family system. So I know that in AA they don't address the cause, so I think it's really, really important that people get both the AA system where there is the sponsor and there's the group support, there's the community, and then of course the 12 steps, along with the mind map system that goes right to expressing the repressed feelings and dismantling the cause behind it. Very essential that the two go hand in hand. And I don't recommend for people to only do therapy without the 12-step or some sort of a support system behind them. It's just too big an animal.
You can't. And there was an article which I read, Dr. Drew, for those Dr. Drew Pinsky, who has had issues with alcoholism and addiction. He said one thing in this article that I thought was really interesting along those lines. He says, look, you need to be sat on for months, and you need to be sat on by someone who really understands the distortion. And we're talking about addiction, okay, alcohol or otherwise. The BS, the emotional component, all the elements that go into being an addict in early recovery.
Yeah.
You really have to be watched by someone very insightful into your condition. In this instance, it really does take one to know one. It is not easy, and it takes a big decision to do that, as you'll see in a moment. It can creep up on you, as I read that quote, and before you know it, it owns you. You don't own it.
And it just reminds me, because I do connect dots, and I just think this way, that what Dr. Drew Pinsky is saying is that we need a babysitter. So speaking of the hole in the soul, it seems like that baby childhood phase was disconnected from, and now the person needs literally a bottle in their mouth and a babysitter to somehow recapitulate something and heal something. So it's just very interesting way that you put what he's talking about. See, we need a babysitter to get us through.
Sat upon.
Yeah.
And if you're just tuning in, thank you so much for listening to us. This is Dr. Judy WTF, which of course is What the Freud here at Universal Broadcasting Network. You can find us on TuneIn, Stitcher, iTunes, and of course YouTube. You can watch all our shows for those that don't catch us streaming live. And if you want to write us, you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com as well. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and of course we have the infamous Dr. Judy Rosenberg here as well, Dr. Judy. So I found this article is from Australia, but I thought it was interesting, the perspective, and this really is an international problem, and they talk about some numbers, and they're really no different than here in the United States. So this really is an international problem. So I thought we'd go through 10 ways to tell if you have a drinking problem. And we're probably going to go through more than that with some others, but we'll start here. Number 10 is you regularly drink more than you intend to. You know, I'll just have one more.
One more. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right. Okay. You can't help yourself. You gulp down your drinks. You drink to get drunk, and you're taking it and you're just gulping it down. Another one is quite the opposite. You sip your drink. You just have that constant little buzz, and you just want to sip it so you maintain that buzz and you don't go over or under. It's just I got that nice buzz.
And remember, what people are really doing is they're self-medicating.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so if you want to look under the hood, so to speak, of what's going on, is that back to attachment theory. We don't know how to self-soothe when we're injured. We don't know how to self-soothe if we don't have a mother or father or primary caregiver giving us the skills to calm ourselves down. So of course we're going to bring in elements to calm down and fill that hole in the soul. And that's just a natural one.
Well, we're just sucking on a bottle instead of a breast.
We're sucking on that bottle, yeah.
You regularly miss work due to drinking. I mean, of course, this is a pretty obvious one, but the nausea, poisoning, and stuff that you get sick and you just can't go to work, or you have to have that drink before you go to work, right? One or the other.
Or social situation.
Well,
don't you have friends that they, the minute they get to the restaurant or the minute they get to your house or the minute they get anywhere, where's that bottle? Where's that bottle?
Or they're bringing a 6-pack along. Hey, man, I bought the beer. Let's crack open that bottle of wine. I got a great Chardonnay here, or that Cabernet. And another issue is, it's just mentioned here, but we'll do that. Instead of drinking socially, you do the exact opposite. You drink alone, right?
Right.
Causing trouble at home. I mean, this is pretty obvious. Whether it's your finances, lies, stealing, or just the fact that you spend most of your time blotto, that's an Australian term, trouble at home is a red flag. And here's a couple of questions that were really poignant. Are you putting alcohol before your loved ones?
That's a key sign.
Alcohol before your loved ones. Or another question here, what, along those lines, the same thing, what is more important to you, your loved one or the alcohol?
And so when that shift happens, then usually your loved one will start complaining, and then the alcoholic will say, oh, you're making too big a deal of it. And the denial system is outrageously intricate.
Yes, indeed.
And the excuses and the stories and anything to make it seem like there's not really a problem there. And that's the stinking thinking that they talk about in AA. Stinking thinking, which is where you're distorted. You don't really see that you have a problem, and that's why the AA system is so powerful, and that's why sponsors are so powerful, because you need someone with an outside view, somebody who is looking at you directly and not you looking at you, because there's that tremendous denial system and there's the blind spot, and you're never really going to be able to self-reflect, especially if you're drunk. You can't self-reflect.
Well, I had a friend of mine say you need someone that doesn't co-sign your BS.
Yeah, there we go.
Someone who's not going to co-sign your Bravo Sierra. Okay, and it takes one to know one, and it does take more than a village. I love this one. It's kind of funny. You drink because you have problems. Maybe you drink because you hate your job. Maybe you drink because you don't have a job. Maybe your crazy girlfriend drives you to drink. Maybe your landlord, or maybe the milkman, or maybe it's the dog. Drinking is the solution. Right?
And remember, we talk a lot about the trauma brain, the amygdala. So for people who have had deep wounds, deep traumas, this area of the brain, the emotional fear-centered fight-flight system, is going off all the time. And so it makes sense that we want to calm that area down. And there are pathways to healing that are not considered unhealthy isms, such as meditation, exercise, just having some quality sleep, communicating your feelings to a loved one who has empathy for you. These are all healthy defense mechanisms. But when we don't feel that we're connected to, and we feel that we're alone in our world, and we don't have somebody that we can feel is going to support us in our emotional world, we'll pull in a substance.
Yes. Again, trying to fill a hole in the soul.
And our parents set the bar. So if our parents didn't give us that, then we're assuming that no one else can give us that. And so how are we going to get our emotional needs met? And then we figure it out. And that becomes the solution.
Yep. Or you try to quit, but you fail. Alcohol really does have your claw in you. It's time to ask a close friend, or again, as we've discussed, Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an international outfit. It was actually started here in Southern California at Clifton's Cafeteria in downtown LA, and and I've been to meetings and Al-Anons as well, which is another amazing group we've talked about before. Which is if you're a child of an alcoholic, lying about your drinking. Right? It starts off hiding bottles and liquor, or telling little white lies. Or then all of a sudden you're waist deep in the routine of deceit. And you're lying to yourself as to others, because deep down you realize that you have a problem.
And you brought up children of alcoholics. I deal a lot with children of alcoholics. And what happens there is that you might have a mother who's depressed because the father is not nurturing the mother, and then the mother doesn't have enough to give to her children. So it becomes this big dysfunctional system. Father withdraws into alcoholism, or sometimes even the rage within the family will escalate because alcohol lessens the resolve and is kind of like a truth serum. So sometimes very, very angry, outrageously rageful feelings will emerge within that individual, and these are the repressed feelings that have not been properly processed. And then the children are victims of hearing their parents
huge
go at it with each other, and they have to live in fear and in all the chaos.
Or dad drinks and he's a mean drunk.
Right.
And he comes home and he's not a happy camper and may take it out on mom. He may take it out on the children. I know situations where dad comes home and mom's got to hide the kids or get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah. And
finally takes enough of it. She can't. She finally takes the heck out of Dodge and doesn't come back.
Right, and it's hard to break up that family because oftentimes the mother is reliant on the father for the paycheck, and so they know that if the whole thing breaks up, then what are they going to do to feed the kids? So it's a hugely dysfunctional system.
We've talked about this, but want to bring it up again. You drink alone, okay? Maybe it's just a couple of beers after work, or it's that glass or two of wine once you get home. You regularly get wasted by yourself. Not only is this sad, but it's a worry. Forming a relationship with alcohol. And that's the question is, do you have a serious relationship with alcohol? If you do, you can call us and talk to us about it and not even use your real name at 323-843-2826, or you can write us or tell someone, because it's a really huge, gigantic burden. Another one is blackouts. Are you passing out? Do you have gaps in memory, gaps of time? Drinking affects all stages of the memory function. And what was interesting in this particular one, which wasn't in other stuff I read, is each blackout that you have increases the likelihood of further blackouts. So
Wow.
if you have one blackout and you do not address your problem, there's a greater chance you're going to have another blackout. And, if you have lost blocks of time you can't account for, you probably have a serious relationship with alcohol. And the last one in this one, and we're going to continue with others, is you have to take that morning eye-opener drink just to stop the shakes. Seeing that flashing red light, that's a major problem. If you need to drink to stop alcohol withdrawal symptoms, shaking, nausea, or anxiety, then you need to immediately curb your drinking. It never, ever, ever gets better. It only gets worse.
Right. And for people who are really deeply entrenched into alcoholism, they need inpatient treatment. So don't do this alone, folks. You don't want to go through delirium tremens on your own. And you want... It's not safe, and you want to do this under supervision with a lot of love and support and containment, and then start subbing in healthy defense mechanisms like good nutrition and good sleep and prayer, meditation, and all the things the 12-step offers.
One of the articles in terms of recovery in lieu of time, they said basically if you make it past a 2-year mark, there's a really good chance you're going to make it. And if you make it past the 5-year mark, you're pretty much going to make it for the rest of your life. In terms of recovery.
It's almost like cancer.
Yeah, there you go.
The 5-year mark.
5-year mark in remission.
Yeah. What is it about the 2-year, 5-year mark?
5-year mark in remission in cancer. It's absolutely true.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted you to talk about a little bit, Judy, about denial, because that is a gigantic, gigantic problem.
I don't want to talk about it. Go ahead.
Well, often deny, even after some people have had multiple DUIs, don't even want to admit and deny that they have a drinking problem. One of the biggest problems in alcoholism is denial. Deny it all you want.
Right. It doesn't hold because it's not sustainable, because any system that is built on a faulty structure will go into chaos and breakdown. And so denial is an unsustainable system. It can only hold up for so long. And if it doesn't implode on you, then other people in your life will start leaving you, and it'll eventually get to you, and it'll eventually implode on you, and it'll probably be then out of your control. Rather than being at the cause of recovery, you will then find yourself at the effect. And it's much better to become proactive about seeking help than reactively fall into the gutter, so to speak, and bottom out that way. It's better to just say, "Hey, I've got a problem. I don't want to wait till my bottom is so low that I'm homeless or throwing up in some gutter in the street, and I don't need to have cirrhosis of the liver as my bottom." So hopefully you create a proactive plan to get yourself out of that dark hole.
And what's interesting is you spend more and more time around alcohol. You think about it. You plan it. You purposely go to social settings where there is alcohol. Maybe it's at sports bar. Maybe it's at bowling alley, where you can have a few brewskis while you're bowling, which you're really there more to drink than you are to bowl. And then, of course, there's the time to recover from it. Maybe you have blackouts, loss of time. So the point is, if it's gobbling up more and more of your energy, more of your mental energy, as well as your time, and again, you've got a serious relationship with alcohol. And maybe a growing inability to deal with life.
And it weakens your muscles to cope.
Weakens everything.
So if that's your coping skill, right, then you're not really learning how to manage your emotions, and you're not building skills to manage your emotions. And again, I want to remind everybody that we are not the cause of part one of our lives. However, we are the cause of part two. So if genetically you were loaded this way, if environmentally your family of origin, the bad blueprinting pulled the trigger, then it's still upon the individual to say, okay, I'm not going to allow part one to ruin the rest of my life, and then start going into therapy and active recovery with a 12-step or some sort of a step program behind you.
Right. Let me expand on that in a minute here. You have behavioral swings, as Judy's mentioned. Addicts often display significant changes in their personalities and behavior. If you have a friend or family member who's genuinely the life of the party, then begins to withdraw and spend time more alone, there may be a problem with addiction. Or again, we've talked about being a mean drunk.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. I remember talking to a psychiatrist about the mean drunk syndrome, and he was explaining to me, which I kind of already knew at the time, that alcohol is like a truth serum. So if we have pain underneath the alcohol and we haven't resolved any of this anger and hurt within, then it'll come out as the mean drunk. And so it's a really, really great way to know that there are suppressed feelings that must be dealt with, because we're back to symptoms don't lie. They're hieroglyphics or clues that point to the cause. And until you dismantle the cause, I don't care how many behavioral or medical modification techniques you use, if you don't dismantle the cause and address the emotional pain and the mother-infant disconnect, the human disconnect behind it, then you're just going to be in symptom management mode for the rest of your life, and you're not going to have that paradigm shift of being able to really reprocess the emotions that are sitting in the amygdala and cracking your lens of perception and your whole way of being in life.
I want to touch on a couple of the myths of alcohol. The first one is hangovers are no big deal. Heavy drinking rocks the central part of your nervous system. Mm-hmm. There's no wrong about it. I mean, headaches, dizziness, nausea, dehydration. I mean, that's pretty darn hard on your body. Mm-hmm. Only bingers get hangovers. Even sometimes a couple of drinks can give you a hangover. Wine is the gentlest of choice. No, actually, if you're going to drink, and my father as a physician stated this, drink the clear ones, which is why vodka is so prevalent and so
and also
big.
so easy to get away with, because you could take one of your sports bottles, right? People think that you're sipping down water, and you could be at work with your bottle, and I think vodka doesn't smell that.
No, because
prominent. Is that correct?
That's correct, because it has the least amount of sugar.
Okay.
And sometimes that's what really hits you is the hangover, is the sugar part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The alcohol helps you sleep well. That's one that's a myth. It says here that just the opposite. While a nightcap may help you doze off more quickly, too much undermines the quality of your sleep. You don't spend much time in the all-important REM cycle, and you wake up too soon and you can't get back to sleep. Mm-hmm. Coffee doesn't help either. A lot of coffee leads to more dehydration and makes the hangover worse. So you want to drink a water or sports drink. Also, they talk about the fact that, maybe, you have an alcohol in a little drink in the morning that'll help you take the edge off. No, that just prolongs the inevitable of having that hard hangover. Mm-hmm. And lastly here is alcohol poisoning. They really talk about it. Confusion, stupor, vomiting, seizures, slow or irritable breathing, low body temperature, bluish skin. You've got blemishes all over your face.
And busted blood vessels,
like
right?
Red nose.
Yeah,
it's all you're dealing with alcohol poisoning.
And speaking of nutrition and alcohol, alcohol is it raises the pH level of your blood because it's a carb, so it's an inflammatory. Mm-hmm. Yes, so on that level, it also really messes up the whole internal system, because when we eat more basic foods, then we're balancing our blood. If we're eating more acidic, inflammatory foods, then we're causing a lot of irritation within the system.
Yes, and so
plus the calories, right?
Right.
I mean, these are carbs.
You know, what's funny is I should bring this up. I have 2 daughters that are in their early 20s, and some time ago I said alcohol is 4 things. First off, it's added expense when you're going out to eat. You know, I mean, is an alcohol bill bigger than your food bill?
Yeah.
Added responsibility because you can't drink and drive. Added calories, especially for the ladies, right?
Right.
As guys, I had one friend of mine that lost a lot of weight. What did he do? He stopped drinking beer. He wouldn't go home and have a beer. And he lost like 15, 20 pounds just because he stopped drinking alcohol.
Wow.
And the last one is added drama.
Added drama.
I had a couple in my day job I was working with and told them that, and they go, well, there's a 4th one. And I was actually sitting between them, and they gave each other a very, very knowing look that I wasn't going to dare go down that road. And they said, no, you have to add another one, and that's added drama. And you know that's true.
Yeah.
So alcohol is really 4 things. Added expense, added responsibility, added calories, and added drama. And
we are animals.
Yes, we
so
are.
we keep thinking that we're different than the other species in the animal kingdom. Would you give your dog a bowl of vodka?
Absolutely.
Would you give
spike is water with a little vodka.
Right. Would you put if you were at the zoo, would you be feeding those zebras and elephants with tequila? Hardly so. And they
only if you
wouldn't
follow it with a
do-
lime.
Yeah, sure. They wouldn't do very well with these substances. And so why would we?
And lastly is total loss of power. If you tell yourself you're going out with friends and will have 1 drink but wind up having 5, and for us guys, 5 drinks is binge drinking, and ladies it's 4, you might have a problem with binge drinking. If you and a loved one are having a problem with alcohol, it is important that you reach out and get help as soon as you are aware there's an issue. The sooner you get help, the better the chances of recovering are and not ruining your relationships, personal life, work, and business life. The toll you're taking on your family is a harsh one that really could ruin your life.
And so for those of you who are married to alcoholics, it's really, really important that you not become enablers to the system and that you take really good care of yourselves and you don't make it easy for that individual to continue their addiction. And so by going to Alcoholics Anonymous or CODA meetings, you learn how to work with the system so that you can allow for that person to hit bottom and take proactive steps to start getting out of the hole.
And again, I'm going to reiterate: being proactive is do not co-sign their BS. Don't cover for them. Don't call work and go, hey, my husband's not feeling well today, or my husband has to help me with something.
Yeah.
The minute you do that, you're adding incredible insult to the injury. And it's just going to perpetuate and get worse.
Because
take a stand. No, it's not easy. But you know what? The cure is a whole lot more easy once you get started and get down that road than the cause.
And nobody wants to disrupt a system, albeit dysfunctional, because when you disrupt a system, everything changes, so that there's this urge within the family system to keep things regulated as is. And so it's only when things come to head that the people within the system have to start making other plans.
And no, it's not easy. And if you want to write us, you can. We'd be happy to be the resource. If you like some of our notes or you have an idea for a show or a song, we're going to Shrink now. You can write us at info@drjudywtf.com. So that's been our little show on alcoholism, and we'd love your comments. I had one lady that wrote a thesis on anorexic and bulimia and actually heard our show, and she learned some things. She thought it was great.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And thank you, Anna Cho, my psych assistant, for being on the show and sharing your experience with working with bulimics and anorexics.
So we're going to shrink a song entitled Cigarettes and Alcohol by the group called Oasis. Is it my imagination, or have I finally found something worth living for? I was looking for some action, but all I found was cigarettes and alcohol.
Okay, so this person doesn't have a relationship, right? Or no significant one, so he's finally finding something worth living for.
Yeah, absolutely. You could wait a lifetime. You could spend days in the sunshine. You might as well do the white line, because when it comes on top, you got to make it happen.
Well, okay, so sunshine, I guess, isn't good enough for that person, and the white line sounds like cocaine. That's doing it.
Yep.
So this person's clearly looking for some action to make it happen because it's not happening within. There's no comfort within. There's no soothing within. So it's got to come from the outside in. Hole in the soul.
Hole in the soul is exactly
that.
what I was going to say. Is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job where there's just nothing worth working for? It's a crazy situation, but all I need are cigarettes and alcohol.
So there's the hopelessness. Maybe the person is out of a job and the social stressors are hitting heavy. And nothing's worth working for because there's nothing more reinforcing, right? Is a job reinforcing compared to a glass of wine, tequila, margarita, whatever it is, or a line of cocaine in this case? It's just not worth working for.
But I'll drink to that.
Yeah.
You could wait a lifetime to spend your days in the sunshine. You could as well do the white line, because when it comes on top, you got to make it happen.
Yeah, it sounds like this person's making it happen by soothing their nerves, and they're making it happen from the outside in because they don't have the ingredients of emotional goodies from the inside out. So that's what happens.
Thank you for tuning in, folks. You've been listening to Dr. Judy, WTF.com, and I'm your host, Walt Lusk. We have Dr. G. Rosenberg here. Next week we'll have another show, and we're going to close out with our song. So be sure and write us if you have any queries, questions, comments, or concerns, at info@drjudywf.com as well. God bless everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in.